The project sheet says that I want you to hand this in as an MP4, okay? And I'll have you do that on Blackboard. So I'm going to show you how you can quickly create or render your compositions. So if you need to send them to a client to show them, say, where you're currently at, or if you're done and you're going for a final critique and things like that, how you can quickly make a rendering for them, and then a more specific way of rendering your final piece to, maybe you're just targeting a specific device, or you're going to put it on YouTube or Vimeo or something like that. I'll show you how you can do that a little bit more specifically. So the real kind of generic way is, so I've got a composition here, okay? Render with media encoder. I'm just going to go up under composition and go to add to render queue. So you've got a render queue of, there's no like save as or export or anything. You need to go to this add to render queue, and it'll pop up right down here where your timeline is. You can move it if you like. You don't need to use it right down here. Let me just zoom in here really quick. So we've got this one called render settings, and it's already just going to be best settings. So I'm just going to click on that and show you what this pop-up dialog box is talking about really quick. Just a couple options that I've only ever used when I do something like this. Quality best, obviously that's pretty self-explanatory, or a draft or a wireframe. It depends on how big you want your file size to be. Of course, it's going to depend on how long your video is. This one's only 7 seconds, so I don't really see a point in going down to draft or wireframe. I'll just give them a really good rendering. The resolution at full, if you turn that down, it doesn't actually decrease the quality of your video. It really just changes the pixel size of your video. So if you go to half, the resolution doesn't change, but you'll notice here that both of these values are cut in half. So instead of 1280 by 720, I'm going to have a 640 by 360. Okay. You might want to consider doing that if you're just doing like an update to a client or something like that, just to show them what you've got. Keep your file size low, that way they can maybe open it. You can send it via email or something if it's small enough. And this little bit right down here. So, maybe they've already seen parts of what you've created. You want to show them the latest update. You can pick a custom start time and end point. This video is only 7 seconds long, so the custom start time and end point right now is actually the whole video. If I click on custom, I can change that. So I could maybe put the start time at, whoops, shouldn't hit return, 3 seconds. Maybe I only want to show them what happens between 3 and 5 seconds. So yeah, that's one of those options. So that's under render settings. I've got custom on right now. I'm just going to change this back. Okay, output module. So this is basically talking about what kind of a file type do you want, and what kind of compression settings do you want to use when you render this video. So by default, because I'm on a Mac, I've got QuickTime. Okay, if you're on a Windows system, you might get like a Windows Media or Windows Media Player. I can't even remember. I don't even know what it is these days because it's been so long since I've used a PC. So that's what that is. The next section here, video output. We don't have any alpha channels in this. I haven't talked about that yet. This is just, we're going to use RGB, that's fine. Format options, if you go in here, this is the section where you basically talk about your compression. Okay, right now that's what codec basically means, what type of compression you want to use on this. Animation really means no compression, so you're going to get a pretty big file. If you click on this, you can see the amount of different compression settings you've got. It's pretty crazy. My go-to is this H.264. In terms of relating that a video to an image, you guys are familiar with like saving for web and JPEGs and things like that. That would be kind of like the equivalent for a video as saving as a JPEG. Okay, so all JPEGs have some sort of compression setting applied to them. That's what this does. But I am going to leave the quality at 100. And audio options. I'm not too familiar with audio, to be completely honest with you. I'm not sure what the difference between 48 kilohertz and 44 kilohertz is, and I kind of know what stereo and mono is. It's left and right speakers and things like that. So if you are working with somebody who's well versed in audio, anybody, I'm sure somebody here plays some sort of musical instrument, they might have a better idea of what kind of settings to apply to that. So I'm just going to click OK. And the last thing that I need to do is right here, output to. I haven't specified anything yet. So this is going to be where on my system am I going to find my finished file. So if I just click on this, I'm going to save this to my desktop. Click on this and then go to desktop right here. I'll just call this surfing. And you can see here that my file format is a QuickTime movie. That was in my output module. I can't select anything else. So I'm just going to click save. And that hasn't done anything. Okay, I actually need to go over to this button right here and actually click the render button. Now what happens is as this is rendering, it actually tells you at what point of your project it's at. So it's currently rendering this composition, and if you fly open that little caret right there, you can actually see exactly what it's doing, what layer it's rendering, what frame it's on, how long it's going to take to finish. So I'm just going to, best sound in the world is coming up. Hope it works. So when you hear the chime, that means your project is done, and you can now view it. So here's my surfing movie. It's .mov, so QuickTime. So it should open QuickTime for me. I hope it.
MP4?
Yeah, I'm going to get MP4, so I'm going to show you how to do that next. So here it is, Surf Zone. Okay, so that's the whole thing. So if I'm just going to look at the inspector, no document. What are you talking about, no document? There we go. 33.3 megabytes. That's maybe a little bit large to send through through email. Are you guys familiar with WeTransfer? So it's just WeTransfer.com. It's actually a really good just online resource if you ever want to send something really big. It's basically like an email. You can send things up to 10 gig. It's pretty cool. So I guess I'll just show you that really quick.
Is it secure?
Yeah, it's actually really secure. This is it. So I just skip right over here. I agree. Add files, email, your own email, and a message, and they just get an email in their they just get an email saying somebody has tried to send you a WeTransfer. Do you accept? And then they just click the accept button right in that email, and then I would actually get a message saying that yeah, they accepted your transfer. So that's actually a really good resource that I use for big movie files and other large Photoshop files like website mockups and stuff like that.
If you remember, can you post it on
Yep.
the website?
Yep. Let me write that down. Okay, so that's a way to really quickly create a rendering of your project. However, if you wanted to do something a little bit more specific, say you're targeting a specific device, or like I said, Vimeo or YouTube, you guys have one project at the end. It's actually the last day on week 15. It's 5% of your final mark, where you actually have to create a YouTube or a Vimeo channel and then upload your videos to that channel, and then that's it. Yeah, I know, sorry. Sorry about buzzkill on week 15. But so I'm going to show you how you can specifically render for those two platforms. Whichever one you want is completely up to you. So under composition, instead of going to add to render queue, I'm going to open this media encoder. Okay, it's somewhat new. You used to be able to render MP4s right out of After Effects, but now we've got this really great media encoder, and it's much more powerful. So here's media encoder. It's this separate window, okay? And because I had my composition already selected right here, it brought that in. And it's actually nice enough that it's going to use that H.264 compression that I used for the last one. But if you click down here, there's a whole bunch of other options. I'm not going to select any of these options. There's a Blu-ray one for really high quality, like HD. The encoder here is where you can select and target a whole bunch of different things, like Apple iPad 2, 3, 4 mini, like all these different crazy options. At the very bottom, you can see Vimeo 720 PHD, 1080 PHD, YouTube. So select one of these two, okay, whenever, because both will give you an MP4. But just select the one that you want to use as your platform for when you do your final project and just create your own Vimeo or YouTube channel and then upload to. So I'll just do YouTube, whatever, 720p. My output file is right here, so this is what it's going to output to. You can see here that my file is MP4. Okay, but that doesn't have to be the only output. You can actually output multiple things in this. Let's say, for argument's sake and the sake of learning, that I've got a YouTube video here. I also want to export this for, I don't know, some sort of specific Apple device, like an iPhone or Apple TV. I want to export this for Apple TV, and here's all my settings. I get in the little pop-up, 24 frames per second, blah, blah, blah. That's a lot of stuff that I don't really know exactly what it's talking about. But all I have to do is, if I know I want to export this for a certain device, I can literally just click on it and drag it up here, and you see that I get the little plus sign. So now I can export for actually two of these things at once. Okay, it was nice enough that it kept the same file name for me. If I wanted to change that, I could do that just by clicking on it, changing where it's going to go. Okay. If I wanted to remove that, just click on this little dark gray area over here and click the minus sign. Yes. Of course, it always wants to ask you, are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. So when you're done, say, I'm happy with this. I'm happy with the file name and the destination and everything. I'm actually not. So I'll fix it. I'll just put it right on my desktop again. And I'll call it Surf. Okay, all I have to do is just hit the little play button right here. That's a huge play button. Just hit play, and down here you get a preview. It's a little bit more specific. Tells you exactly what's going on. Might take a little bit longer because we're going to be doing it in really high quality, 720p, right? So that's pretty good. So it's actually going pretty quick. And again, estimated time remaining. This is basically just, it's calculating how long it took to render the previous, if you're a second in, how long it took to render the previous second or the previous 2 seconds, and it averages out how much longer you've got in your video. But if you have any really big effects or a lot of layers or a lot of things happening on the screen at once, that might slow down. So okay, so you don't get the nice little chime in this, but you get a nice little check mark instead. So you get the visual instead of the audio. But now if I go out to Circle of Death, M4V. Why is it M4V?